We'll do start that. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We are glad to have y'all here today for our February Topic Tuesday. So we'll get moving a little bit here with some housekeeping items. Just know this is a webinar, so during the presentation, we can't see or hear you, but please feel free to use the box to communicate directly with the panelist or the Q&A box. We will be monitoring that throughout the webinar. So as everyone gets in the webinar today, we have a couple of polls that we're going to launch to have our speakers kind of know our audience and get to know you all. So our first poll we're going to launch, it's to the best of your knowledge, are students aware that they may be considered first generation college students? And do they understand what that means? So if y'all take some time to answer that. Okay, we're getting some results in. No one says yes, they are aware and understand exactly what it means. 56% are saying they are aware, but do not fully understand what it means. And 44% of our participants are saying no, they are not aware. So we'll thank you for your answers there. All right. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. So our next poll is, when working with students, what definitions of a first generation college student have you encountered or used? So this is short answers, so you just type your responses in there. Now don't be scared of the short answer now. Throw something in there. All right, got a couple of answers coming in. All right, got a couple of answers. Chelsea, can you see those answers and give us a share out there?
I am not seeing those answers. Let's see. May have to. There we are. I don't know. You can see it on the screen. So we have first member of your family to attend college, students whose parents or grandparents never went to college, and you're the first in your family to attend college or get any kind of credential after graduation from high school.
So thank y'all for that. Um, so Chelsea, how can we get back to our webinar?
If you'll stop sharing, Shannon,
Okay,
and then reshare with the PowerPoint.
gotcha. Okay, give me just a second, y'all. I'm getting there.
You're fine. And if needed, I can share on my end. You got it?
I
There
got
we are.
it. All
There
right.
we are.
Perfect. All right. Thank y'all so much for participating. I know this will help our presenters with the level of knowledge that you have on this subject. So again, want to welcome everyone. I'm Shannon Grimsley, the Assistant Director of External Training and Partnerships for the Woodward Hines Education Foundation and the Get to College program. We are recording today's session, and we will send a link to anyone who is registered. For those watching today's recording, today's date is February the 3rd, 2026, and the material in this webinar is current through the 25-26 school year. In today's session, Identifying and Supporting First-Generation College Students, you will hear about harnessing the potential and improving success outcomes for our first-generation students. I will now share a little background on Get to College and a few logistics about the webinar before we get started. Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 3 physical centers in Mississippi, one in Jackson, Ocean Springs, and South Haven, and we even have a 4th center, which you may or may not have heard about, which is our mobile center. So it is essentially like one of our physical centers, but on wheels. And we will be traveling through Mississippi, mainly in the Mississippi Delta. And that mobile center does provide all of the services that we provide here in our physical centers. And here in our centers, both physical and mobile, we help parents, students, and high school counselors with all aspects of the college planning and financial aid process. And all of our services are 100% completely free. In these centers, specifically, we offer personalized college counseling appointments where we can tell students when to apply for admission and scholarship, help them fill out their FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and advise on things such as essay writing and interviewing. As we mentioned earlier, during the webinar, we cannot see or hear you, but you can ask us questions through the Q&A or the chat at any time. My colleague, Chelsea Williams, will be monitoring and replying to the Q&A and chat, and we will have a time for the live Q&A with presenters at the end, but do feel free to message your questions at any time. I would now like to introduce our guest speakers for the day. Our first speaker is Wendy Beasley. She serves as the Assistant Vice President, Network Strategies Director for Expert Guidance with First Gen Forward. Prior to joining First Gen Forward, Wendy was the Assistant Dean for Student Success at SUNY Ulster Community College. She was also a member of the coaching leadership team and served as lead coach for the State University of New York's Guided Pathway Project, where she worked with SUNY colleges, engaging the work of institutional transformation. In addition, Wendy has worked with the New York Success Center to develop and deliver training opportunities throughout the NYSSC Coaching Academy. Wendy holds an MPA and a BA in political science from Marist College. She is currently completing a PhD at the University of Albany, the State University of New York, in educational policy and leadership, with a focus on the progression of institutional change theory. Wow, that's impressive, Wendy, and good luck on that. Our next presenter is Dr. Martina Martin. Martina serves as the Vice President for First Gen Forward Network. Prior to joining First Gen Forward, Martina served as Associate Director for the University of Kentucky's Student Community Resources and Services and as the Program Director for First Generation Student Services and Off-Campus Student Services. For over a decade, Martina assisted in developing university-wide first-generation initiatives focused on recruitment, retention, and career and professional development. Martina is a proud first-generation college graduate of Eastern Kentucky University, where she earned a BS in Physical Education, an MS in Physical Education Sports Administration, an MA in Human Services, Student Personnel Services in Higher Education, and an ED in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. Martina resides in Georgetown, Kentucky, with her husband, Ricky Stone Jr. Welcome, Martina. And our last presenter, last but not least, Dr. Quaisha Williams is the Associate Vice President, Learning and Impact Assistant, Vice President of Curriculum and Learning Design at First Gen Forward, where she has made a meaningful impact since joining in March of 2020. As a proud first generation college graduate and an alumni of TRIO's Educational Talent Search and Student Support Services, Quaisha brings both personal and professional dedication to advancing success for first generation students. Her higher education journey began at Florida State University Center for Academic Retention and Enhancement, where she supported summer bridge programs for first generation and economically disadvantaged students. Quaisha earned both her MS in Higher Education Administration and BS in Family Child Sciences from Florida State University, followed by a PhD in College Student Affairs Administration from the University of Georgia. Her work is driven by her own experiences and commitment to creating equitable opportunities for first-gen students across higher education. So as y'all can see, we have some wonderful experts here today to share their knowledge with us. So I will now turn the presentation over to you all.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm so excited. And I want to thank the Wilbur Hines Foundation and the Get to College program for having us here today. And so we're excited to spend some time together, talk about first generation students and their success, and particularly what this critical transition to and through college could look like. So today's conversation is going to be designed to be both reflective and also practical, and we're going to kind of ground ourselves in some shared language and understanding and talk about some of the lived experiences of our first generation college students and talk through some of their backgrounds and challenges and all those good things. We had a wonderful introduction, but there you go again to see us. Again, I am Dr. Martina Martin, who will be kicking us off in this presentation, and we'll be joined by my colleagues, Wendy and Dr. Williams. And our conversation today is going to look a little like this. So we're going to begin briefly by kind of talking about who we are, our mission, and the role that we play in supporting first generation college students. And next, we're going to take a closer look at who our first generation college students are, examine the challenges for first generation students that they often face in this transition to college. And we're also going to kind of take a moment to shift and talk through and highlight the strengths of our first generation students and what they bring with them to college. And building on that, we're going to talk about some of the best practices for supporting our first generation students. And then we're going to turn our attention to preparing students for success beyond admission. And before we close, we're going to take a moment to share some resources with you, and then we'll have some time at the end and hopefully be able to share some additional takeaways and next steps and have some opportunity for some Q&A with each of you here. So, who is First Gen Forward? So, let's talk about that. So, first and forward, we serve as the home for institutions across the country who are really committed to serving and elevating and scaling support the initiatives for first generation college students on their campus, and as well as working with other organizations and communities that are also focused on developing and building up first generation support. And this particular partnerships lives through data sharing, lives through professional development, and then also access to a growing network of other colleges, universities, entities, organizations around the country that are also committed to doing this work. And around 2017 is when the First Gen Forward initiative really started. But at that time, it was known as the Center for First Generation Student Success, which was a partnership between NASPA, our National Association for Student Personnel Administrators, and the Suter Foundation, in which they supported this launch. And so we fast forward to today, where we really work and focus on and take pride in our community of practice around first generation student success. And because that work grew so quickly, we became our own nonprofit organization that is still aligned with our founders in the creation. And our vision has evolved that, again, that can allow for us to become an organization to really position ourselves in really promoting that community of practice to transform higher ed and provide a really amazing space and place for our first gen students to thrive. Why is this work important? It's important because we know that today, and I did notice an error on this slide, and I apologize for that, but I noted that there was 5 million. But today, there are over 8 million first generation college students. More than half of our students across college campuses today are first gen. And we know that there are in this space that first generation college students are 30% less likely than their non-first gen peers to continue on to graduation or completion of a credential. And projections show for us that there are going to be an increasing number over the next decade of first generation college students to enter a college campus, whether 2-year, 4-year, technical college. And to give you a visual of kind of where we exist and in the spaces and places we are, this is an overview where we're serving over 470 institutions across the country. And if anyone knows any folks in the state of North Dakota, please let us know, as we want to be able to say that we're at all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. But we are excited to be a national entity doing this great work. And so now I want to turn over to Quaisha to talk a little bit more about who our first generation college students are.
All right, thank you, Dr. Martin. And so before we get to the juicy stuff about strategies or different supports, we think it's really important to ground ourselves in who first gen college students are. And so generally, first gen students are defined as those whose parents or guardians did not complete a 4-year college degree. In some cases, families may have college experience that did not lead to a degree completion, or we do have some family or some students with families who may obtained degrees from other countries, and students may still identify as first generation because the systems and expectations of college remain unfamiliar. So we do get those questions a lot about like, or students thinking, well, my older sister is in college or graduated from college, they're still considered first generation. And so first generation students exist across every GPA range, test score, school context. They are found in honors courses, early career pathways, and first gen students may be academically strong, highly motivated, deeply engaged, and that still presents some challenges with navigating the college process. And so this identity is really not about what students lack, it's about the context in which they are learning to navigate higher education, often for the first time within their families. And so nationally, as it says here on the slide, an estimated 1 in 3 undergraduate students identifies as first generation. And so this statistic is important because it reminds us that first gen students are not an exception. They are a substantial and growing population, as Martina just referenced, for our college going students. And so, in practical terms, this means that in most high schools, a significant number of students in each graduating class will be first gen, even if they do not themselves utilize that label. As we do see that it's not a common term that students a lot of time come into contact with. And so some students may not even realize they are first gen until later in the college process or even while they are actually in college, particularly when sometimes the term will come up in forms or different orientation projects and programs. And so, who are first gen students? Again, so this slide just highlights some several key factors that are interesting and important to understand altogether. And so, first gen students make up, again, that large number. And at the same time, they are applying to college at nearly twice the rate of their continuing gen peers, which is a critical detail because it challenges this assumption that first gen students may lack aspiration or motivation to pursue college, when in reality, many first gen students are actively actively pursuing college as a pathway to opportunity and impact for themselves and sometimes also for their families. However, despite those large numbers, we are also and have also seen persistent outcomes gaps. And so for first gen students typically graduate at lower rates than continuing gen students. And these differences are not a resort or a result of ability or effort. Instead, they really reflect differences in access to information, familiarity with systems, and the higher education institutions themselves. It's also important to hold these long-term outcomes in mind, as college graduates are more likely to be employed, earn higher wages, and engage civically. So, supporting first gen students through this transition to college and beyond is not just about access and it doesn't stop once we get them to college. It's about really ensuring that students are positioned to fully benefit from the promise of higher education. And so, just a few more numbers. So, first gen identity often intersects with other important aspects of students' lives and experiences. And so, more than half of first gen students are students of color. A significant share of students are at Hispanic serving institutions, historically Black colleges and universities, Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions identify as first gen. Also, a large percentage, many veterans also are first gen. And so for counselors, this matters because students do not experience first gen status in isolation. For many folks, first gen may not be their most salient or the identity that they really sort of lean into or view the world through. It intersects with race, culture, language, immigration history, family responsibility, community context. And so these intersections really shape how students experience the college search, application process, as well as that transition. And at the same time, these intersections also reflect strength. And many first gen students bring a deep cultural knowledge or strong family values and resilience to our spaces. And so recognizing the complexity of the first gen identity can help counselors to avoid some assumptions, but also provide guidance that honors the full experiences of students. And so challenges first gen students may face in the college transition. So as students move from high school to college, the transition can feel overwhelming for many students. For first gen students, that transition often may include some additional layers of complexity. And so again, especially when I talk about first gen students, I like to say it again and again and again that these challenges are not always about readiness and ability. They are about navigating systems that were not designed to be intuitive and were not designed to just be, oh, this makes sense all the time. And so college introduces new language, new expectations, new responsibilities all at once. And for first gen students, they're often learning how college works at the same time and also trying to succeed within it. So understanding the challenges that we're going to talk about can help counselors really anticipate where students may need reassurance, clarity, or additional support before they ever even step on a campus. And so this slide outlines several challenges that first gen students commonly face. The first one here is navigating college systems can be confusing. So admissions portals, financial aid requirements, all of these different things oftentimes assume prior knowledge that first gen students may not have. There are words like bursar, there are all types of different words that come up when you enter a higher education space that are not commonly used outside of those spaces. The other note that I just want to make here is that when we talk about these challenges and when we talk about these strengths and even the best practices, these are not things that are uniquely to first gen students. These are things that other continuing gen students may struggle with as well, or all these other things. And a lot of the best practices are supportive for all students. And so I just always also like to add that piece in, like talking about removing some of these barriers, changing these language, that helps all students, but it really, really helps the students who do not have that prior knowledge and familial access. The other challenge here, financial barriers can be significant. And so some first gen students can be balancing some affordability concerns, some complexity navigating the financial aid process. And for some of our first gen gen students, also balancing some family expectations and obligations. And so these pressures can sometimes influence college choice, but also can influence persistence. Academic transitions present another challenge. College coursework often requires a different approach than high school. And so being able to understand and break that down without clear guidance, sometimes students may begin to question their ability rather than just recognizing, oh, this is a need to adjust or do things a little bit differently than I'm used to. A lot of times it can be, well, maybe I don't belong here. And so trying to identify that. Social capital matters as well. Many first-gen students may have fewer informal networks that provide advice about majors or internships or just generally navigating college campus culture. Then belonging and identity challenges can also surface, including feelings of self-doubt or pressure to succeed for family or community. Career navigation can also feel distant or unclear without early exposure to pathways. And opportunities. An example I'll use there for career navigation is I remember having a student when I was at UGA that she was in the business program, and when they got to their junior year, there was an internship requirement, and she was like, everyone in the class had already known that this was coming up, and they had talked with their parents and their neighbors, and they had secured all of these opportunities that this student was like, no one ever mentioned that before, it was relevant to this class. And so without that prior knowledge and without those social capitals, it just presented a little bit more of a challenge. She was a little further behind with trying to secure that internship. And so, again, many of these challenges really speak to institutions not being fully what we call in our work student ready, rather than students being underprepared. This is really the work of First Gen Forward, and this is what we do when we partner with colleges and universities we want to address these structures and the supports and the systems to better serve first gen students, which ultimately better serves all students. And so we think that sharing these challenges with you all across the K through 12 space and higher education is really critical to closing those gaps to help create some more seamless transitions for students. And so with those challenges, also like to identify, okay, we have some challenges. What are some different actions that folks can take in their different spheres of influence? And so again, just wanting to emphasize that, each of these challenges can have an opportunity to present a corresponding action. And so when systems feel confusing, counselors can help to demystify the process, walking students through step-by-step applications, financial aid forms, placement requirements, advising students, helping them to build that confidence to reduce anxiety. And I will say that there are a lot of institutions who are that, especially that we work with, and then others beyond our network, are really working to demystify the process across a lot of admissions pages. Sometimes you'll find like a glossary of terms that will define all of the different terms that folks have. And so institutions are working to support this as well, but being able to even tell students that, like, oh, let's search this website to see if they have some of these, or there are some that are more general to really help students. Financial barriers can be addressed by normalizing financial planning early, helping students compare aid offers, and also understanding what financial aid packages really mean. When I was at Florida State, I had a lot of students who took out loans because it was a part of their financial aid packet, and they didn't understand that they could deny those loans and they could just utilize the grants or the scholarships they had. So helping students to be able to understand that, or even connecting them with the folks who can help to provide that insight and information. For academic transitions, setting clear expectations, explaining the difference between high school and college academics, encouraging students or even presenting information about other programs and services that may help, such as summer bridge programs or dual enrollment, which Wendy will talk more in more detail with when we get to best practices, and just generally reinforcing that asking for help is a strength that can really make a meaningful distance difference. Wrong D word. And then just some other challenges to actions. When students are faced with that limited social capital, counselors can often play a critical role as connectors. So introducing students to mentors, maybe students who have graduated or connections at that institution, college access programs. In my bio, they mentioned, I always like to mention that I am the product of TRIO programs. And I did not know when any of those, I didn't know what trio meant. I didn't know what first gen meant. I didn't know what any of those words meant until my counselor said, "Hey, you should join this program called Educational Talent Search." I was very confused because I felt like I had no talents and I didn't understand what an educational talent was, but it was the best thing. I was able to go on multiple college tours. They provided me with waivers to apply to schools, all of this wonderful support that had I just been applying on my own, I don't know exactly where I would have made it, but these programs and services that was recommended to me by my high school counselor was really the thing that set me onto my academic trajectory. So, belonging and identity challenges oftentimes require affirmation. So, using asset based language, sharing stories of first gen student success, and really normalizing uncertainty can help students see themselves as capable and deserving of their place in college. Career navigation should begin earlier than many students expect. So, encouraging exploration, and again, counselors helping students translate all of these things into and making sense with them. So again, just really helping students to understand that. I was really excited to do this presentation because I just believe the work that you all do is just so integral. I remember being a confused student. I applied to go again in my bio. It mentioned I went to Florida State. I applied to go to Florida State and I was denied. And I said, okay, well, they know best, right? They believe that I am not college ready. So then why would I continue to apply for other schools or for other programs? And it was a counselor at Florida State who continued to work with me. And then I applied for a summer bridge program where I started earlier, got all the support, the dean's list, all the things. And so again, just the integral work that you all do and just being able to reaffirm students that you belong. You might not get into a school that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't belong in that space. And so my also other favorite thing about talking about challenges is to not just I always find it to be very critical that we do not frame first gen students or any students really through the lens of just challenge. So I always like to really talk about the strengths. So first gen students bring significant strengths that oftentimes can be under recognized in educational spaces, though we are trying to change that, and there are a lot of people working to change that. These strengths are rooted in lived experiences and are powerful assets for college success, especially when they are named and when they are affirmed. And so this slide marks a really intentional shift from barriers to strengths, reminding us of all of the resilience that is there. And so out here, there's a source down below. And so there's a framework that's often utilized in a lot of spaces when we talk about first gen students around community cultural wealth. And it helps us to give voice to the assets that first gen students bring. And so aspirational capital, as it is listed here, really shows up in students who help to maintain hope and motivation despite any obstacles that may come up. Familial capital reflects strong family bonds, values, and sense of responsibility. Navigational capital includes skills developed by moving through unfamiliar systems and environments. Linguistic capital highlights multilingual communication, storytelling, cultural fluency. I used to work with a colleague who had a native background, and she just talked about how storytelling was so big in their culture, which really translated to her when she began writing and different things when she went to college. So looking at the lived experiences that these students have and what is it that they've built from that may not look like the capital that's been written about in research and all of these fields for years and years and years, but what are the pieces that we're missing? And so for counselors, recognizing these forms of capital can help change how we talk with students about their readiness and potential in grounding their strengths and thinking about using their strengths when framing this college going, in particular, this navigational capital that we just talked about. What the key part of navigational capital is skills to be able to move through unfamiliar systems. What is college if not an unfamiliar system? And how some of their life experience has helped prepare them for the different things that they will face. And so lastly, before I pass it over to talk more about practices, so just wanted to spend some time just recognizing, and again, and naming the strengths of first gen students and why it's so critical, because it really shifts from the term we use is like a deficit-based approach to an asset-based approach. So being less focused on challenges and weaknesses and more focused on those strengths, and empower and to be more empowering to our students. And so when students are viewed primarily through what they lack, they may internalize, doubt, or feel that they do not belong. In contrast, affirming students, such as affirming their strengths, such as that resilience, motivation, all of these different pieces can help families as well as students help to see themselves as capable and deserving of success and higher education. And so I know we know that you all are advisors and utilize some strengths-based advising, but using that to build trust and belonging, which are really essential for first-gen students who can sometimes feel uncertain navigating these unfamiliar academic environments. And so when counselors are acknowledging students' lived experiences as well as their sources of knowledge and skill, students are often more likely to seek that guidance and persist through challenges rather than to just disengage. From a practical standpoint, recognizing strengths also allows counselors to connect students' existing skills to their college success strategies. And finally, encouragement grounded in strengths really helps to support that long-term motivation and persistence. And so I'm a researchy person, and so research shows that first-gen students who feel affirmed and supported are more likely to enroll, they're more likely to utilize the campus resource, and they're more likely to persist to degree completion, which is our goal. And so by consistently reinforcing strengths, counselors can help students really build that positive academic identity that sustains them beyond just admissions and into and through college. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my lovely colleague, Wendy.
Thank you. So you have just heard a lot of information, some statistics, some research, but what does that mean when we're working with students to explore their options? One of my favorite statements, and you've heard this earlier, is first gen students lack information and not ability. And one of the most impactful things that we can do when we're working with students is create small interventions that have an outsized impact. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to really just adjust our conversations with students. Higher ed, we love a good acronym and 47-step process. But how do we translate that into something that's clear and concise and understandable and not terrifying for students, right? How do we do that? The financial guidance piece, my goodness, the sticker price on any college is a really scary thing to come face to face with. So, talking about affordability framed in the way that Dr. Williams was talking about, it's not just the FAFSA. And let's not say FAFSA. Let's talk about the process. But let's talk about the other types of financial assistance and support that can contribute to what that cost would be for each student. The asset-based approach. Let's talk about things that are going well, things that are working, things that contribute to the student's successful experience so far and how that can translate. And the just-in-time approach. Anyone working with students wants them to have every possible bit of information that they can have so that they are prepared to handle any eventuality. But let's take a step back and figure out what needs to happen right now to be a building block for the next step, to be a building block for the next step. Because we don't want to overwhelm people with too much information as I sit here and overwhelm you with more information. But we want to make sure that students see how things connect and that their families and support systems can follow that connection with them. And that conversation intervention is really the through thread because you want to elevate confidence and belonging in students. Again, celebrating strengths of students, but importantly, also starting to think about how to bring the family or support system into these conversations. There's going to be concerns about cost. There's going to be concerns about outcomes of jobs. There may be concerns about distance. They want to understand that this is not a separation of the family or the support system, but it needs to be reframed actually as a partnership. Everyone has a role and everyone can contribute to a positive experience. And you all have this wonderful knowledge base of successful students and successful situations that you've helped navigate. This is a great opportunity to share with students and their support systems examples of students who have done great things and who've navigated challenges and come out the other side on top. College readiness. When we think about college readiness, frequently the conversation starts with how much math have you taken? Are you ready for English 101? And we need to reframe that and we need to stop thinking about independence as doing something alone. We need to reframe college readiness as empowering students to think about how do I get the support and the resources that I need? Normalizing those questions and the uncertainty that they're facing. So we're mitigating a readiness gap, but it's not content based, it's information based, and making sure that students understand that not only is asking questions and seeking information part of college, it's the point of college. One of the great things that we get to do as part of First Gen Forward is talk to institutions all across the country. So we are hearing some wonderful things that institutions are committing and focusing on to better support first generation students. Sense of belonging and community. I would say in the past 18 months or so, this is something that has really risen to the top of priorities for institutions. Institutions are making intentional efforts to help students build community within their first generation student colleagues. They're also being very intentional about highlighting faculty and staff members who are first generation students themselves. And it gives students a visible connection of someone who's been in their shoes, but who has come out and established a professional career. And it creates that affinity between the experience that they have now and where they want to go. Mentor programs, not it's not anything new. So students will be paired with faculty or staff, but where it gets exciting is institutions are pairing students with first gen alumni or first gen upperclassmen. And that gives them the opportunity to work with people who have been exactly where they are and have navigated the exact same challenges and have had the opportunity to succeed in different ways so they can share their experiences and build that professional capital for students. Oh, we're going to talk about money again because we can't escape talking about money. Financial support and transparency. Of course, institutions are going to focus on how do you pay your bill. Make sure you have your financial aid paperwork in on time. Don't forget to submit this form. But institutions are increasingly looking at financial literacy, budgeting, how to prepare for life after the institution, setting them up to be successful on the financial end, as well as being successful on the content end. To help students in the moment with some financial challenges, institutions are instituting what they're calling micro grants. And this is an opportunity for things to be addressed while they're still smaller and manageable in scale so that students aren't derailed from enrollment. Things like transportation concerns, food or housing insecurity. Those kinds of things can really, really derail a student. And if the student isn't supported holistically in all of those other components, they're not going to be in the classroom and they're not going to be contributing to that classroom. So the microgrants are something that's very important. Work study positions for so long were just viewed as a way for a student to get a paycheck and contribute to some of that financial support. What's happening now is institutions are really elevating that opportunity for students to be in a professional setting, to engage with faculty and staff in a way that they haven't had the opportunity to before, to build that professional capital and, yeah, get a paycheck at the same time. So they're learning those skills while being able to contribute financially to their education. What happens after they leave us? So initially, we had the access agenda. The problem was access. Okay, now we have students in colleges. Then came the completion agenda. Success. We need to get them through. Then people started to ask, well, when they walk across the stage, do they just keep going? Like what happens then? So the question became, are we preparing them for what comes after? And early career exposure is a way to connect students to their academic program and their eventual career path through internships, job shadowing, even formal coursework in career exploration. Professional skill building, all of that hidden curriculum when you're going out to look for a job. If you're a first generation student, you're very likely a first generation professional. How do you navigate that world when you don't have anyone to share their experiences with you? Alumni networks for first gen students. This is a really powerful group at any institution. Not only is it an opportunity for those students to mentor, those alumni to mentor students, but they could be connections to internship sites, and they can help students build that social network, that network capital that Dr. Williams was talking about. And a very intentional question that institutions are now asking is, what's next? Is it going into the workforce? But now the conversation's creeping into, is it more education? What are we doing to prepare students who want or need additional education to fulfill their goals? This slide is probably the most transformational slide that we have. And what it does is it really shows the shift of institutions from tactical, isolated, programmatic efforts to the way that institutions are looking at student success through the first gen lens. One-stop student support centers, not only helping first gen students, but all students. This is the place you can go to do 4 or 5 different offices worth of things. It streamlines that process for you. Communication, auditing, jargon. How many hundreds of emails do institutions send out? If we can say it in 3 sentences, why not say it in 4 paragraphs? If we can use acronyms, if, all of these things, let's streamline into plain language what needs to be said, the what, the why, the how, and the when, so that students not only understand what needs to be done, but why it needs to be done, so they can make that connection. Extended orientation programs, not just academic focused, but as Dr. Williams indicated, it's really a chance to get all that information and to really position yourself to be at the point where, you know what, I'm ready to sit in class. I understand where everything is connecting and how I can move forward. TRIO and Student Support Services programs, the gold standard of first generation supports, but they have limits on the number of students that they can engage in their caseloads. So institutions are very intentionally connecting those TRIO and Student Support Services programs with other departments on campus so that they can collaborate and scale services and resources to better serve more students. And the institutional imperative, and this is the game changer. More and more institutions are not only calling out first generation support as an institutional imperative, but putting it in their strategic plans, indicating that first generation student success is something that the institution is focused on, and it is a primary objective of the work. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Martin, and she's going to share how First Gen Forward supports institutions that are supporting the students that you support at the very beginning.
Awesome. So as we continue through our slides, I want to take a moment to share 3 areas of resources that are available. So now that we've kind of set the context, the framing, who they are, how to support, and all those pieces, you may be able to say, well, where can we get some additional reference materials? There was a lot, but how can we continue to learn more about the work that's being done to support first-generation students? I will share this with you. www.firstgenforward.org www.firstandforward.org. That is our website. That is a place and space where we have worked through the years to curate a set of tools and insights, resources, data fact sheets for institutions, for those who are ingrained in the work, those who are seeking to look and learn more. And so we do have a 2-year landscape report for those community and technical colleges. We also have a 4-year landscape report designed to share information about the culture, the awareness, and recommendations on how to support students in those spaces. We also have another key resource that I wanted to highlight to you, which is our journal. It is a peer-reviewed journal, the Journal for First Generation Student Success, which is released on a quarterly basis that elevates research, scholarship, and practitioners' insights. So that is a space and place that we offer and make available for our followers and institutions and members. We also want to say that in addition to the journal, we have launched a new set of research briefs, thanks to Dr. Williams and her team and our insights and impact area, that these briefs are designated to kind of help translate research into action. And so they are concise, accessible summaries of some key findings in a variety of areas as it relates to the practice in working with our students that can be value to you, as well as those administrators that you may connect with, as well as other faculty member, teachers, and staff that you can immediately kind of take and utilize. And one of the last areas that I want to point out that we do have available is also another set of fact sheets. We are really, really data driven in the work we do. Without the data, we don't know what to do or how to best serve. So we do believe in that. And so we do provide on our space and website access to just what I've shared are just a few of the fact sheet visuals from what the things look like as it pertains to achievement and federal loan repayment. What does post-graduation look like for employment, finances, and additional education? And then also, so just general demographics and characteristics, similar to what was shared earlier. And then also you have access to our socials, which is another great place to actually kind of follow the trends, follow the conversations, to see what conversations are coming up next, what new research are we launching there. We also post on our LinkedIn access to a article coming from our journal on like the first Saturday of each month. So we wanted to ensure that you had just a little insight of where you can go to find information about our work, to read blogs about our student experiences, as well as access all the data that one could possibly imagine. But please feel free to follow us on the socials and be able to connect with us in that space as well. That is what we have for you today. We wanted to take a moment to at least provide a space and place to field any questions, or maybe take a moment or two to see if there's a question or two. If so, I'm actually just going to just check to see from our hosts if there's any questions that may have come through the Q&A feature.
Chelsea, are we seeing any questions in chat or Q&A?
At the moment, there are no questions in the Q&A or in the chat. But for our attendees, if you do have any questions, please utilize those 2 features for our panelists today.
Awesome. Well, that being said, we thank you for taking some time to listen. Thank you for processing, and we are available at First and Forward to engage in future conversations with you, should you wish. So I'll turn it back over to you all to continue to wrap up and talk about what you have going on with Get to College.
Perfect. Thank y'all so much. We really, really appreciate this information, and thank you for sharing your resources. I'm sure that folks will begin. I followed all your socials right then when you were talking, so excited about seeing what y'all have to share there. So thank y'all again, and I know that everyone on here found the presentation very helpful. We will email everyone who was on this a recording for the webinar, and then we will also post it on our YouTube channel for other folks to enjoy. If you do have any follow-up questions on the information provided in today's webinar, feel free to contact us here at Get to College or any of the presenters that are here on the webinar. First Gen Forward folks, if y'all want to drop emails or other things in the chat as we close, feel free to do that. Just make sure you default to everyone, so that if any of our listeners today want to get in touch with you, they can do so. So as they're doing that, we will talk about our next topic. So today was our 7th webinar of the Fall and Spring Topic Tuesday series. Stay tuned for our next Topic Tuesday webinar, which will be on Tuesday, March 3rd. And during this webinar, we will be discussing student basic needs. We will continue this webinar series throughout the spring semester. If you participate in 5 webinars, you will have the opportunity to apply for 0.5 CEUs. And if you have participated in all 10 webinars over the fall and spring semesters, you will have the opportunity to apply for 1 full CEU. The remaining webinars for the spring semester are listed on the screen, and will cover such things as student basic needs, supporting military members and their families, and mental health matters. These webinars are listed under the educator header in our Get to College website, and then you'll select Topic Tuesday in the events section there. While you are there registering, please check out all the other resources for you and your students listed under that educator tab. And we will have several more training opportunities for educators for the remainder of the 26 spring semester. And we hope that you will register for as many of those as possible. So speaking of those remaining training opportunities, we have a couple of more opportunities for you. Those of you who know Get to College know we are all things FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, because Wendy, we are going to avoid using acronyms as much as possible. So the free application for federal student aid. So if you would like virtual training on what we're calling FAFSA 101, which is just your basic FAFSA training, we have one more opportunity. It is going to be in the afternoon hours on Wednesday, February the 25th from 1 to 3:30. And then our FAFSA 201, which you don't have to have 101 training, but it is preferable if you do have that. But our FAFSA 201 is different than 101 because it is more scenario based. So we will have 8 or 9 scenarios for you, and it will be a highly interactive training. Even though it's virtual, it'll still be interactive, and we'll be talking about financial aid and the FAFSA in scenario-based language. So that will be on Thursday, March 19th in the morning hours from 9 to 11. So we hope that for those of you who haven't done either one of these trainings, you will join us for our last FAFSA 101 and our FAFSA 201. And then the last of our training opportunities is happening in the month of February. We had our first one yesterday. It is our mini webinar series. If you missed the one yesterday, it is posted on YouTube, right, Chelsea? I believe it's already posted out there. Yes. And that was updates just on the new, some of the changes on the FAFSA. Our next one is going to be next Monday, February the 9th, understanding the updated studentaid.gov creation process. And then our last one is going to be on February 16th, and it's going to be where you can come in and bring your questions, all FAFSA and financial aid related, and we're calling that Ask the FAFSA Expert. So these are very short, 30 minutes, but just want to update everyone. There have been some changes even since December on the studentaid.gov accounts and the studentaid.gov that's a mouthful, creation processes. So we wanted to just update y'all on that. So we hope that y'all will join us for those. And that is all we have as far as updates. Of course, feel free to contact us here at Get to College at any time. You see all of our socials here and our email, which is training at get the number 2 college.org. So we are here to help you. And again, we want to thank our colleagues from First Gen Forward. We really appreciate the information that you shared with us today, and we have enjoyed getting to know you all and hope to see you maybe in and around Mississippi soon, doing some of the fun work. I'll kind of leave that little nugget out there and look for some news about that soon if you haven't already seen it. So thank you all so much, and we will see everyone again in March. See you later.